Okay, it looks like we don't have anyone left in the waiting room, so let's get started. Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Stanciel. I'm with the RTA's Regional Coordination Group. This is the Transportation Tuesday webinar on our recently completed Travel Information Action Plan. One of the action items from the Transit is the Answer strategic plan adopted by the RTA board in 2023 is to provide more accurate real-time information for transit riders. Stakeholder working groups made it clear that communication improvements were needed before, during, and at the end of trips. So in February 2024, RTA engaged a consultant team led by H&TB Corporation to conduct a thorough review and assessment of all prov pro information provided to riders throughout the region, with a particular focus on real-time information. The resulting Travel Information Action Plan has identified ways to improve customer information provided during a transit trip in the Chicago region on CTA, Metra, and PACE. For our regional transit system to work seamlessly, information must be consistent across the service providers. Customers riding each service board should feel comfortable using each other's service board services in terms of the information provided at the station, on buses and trains, on signage identifying services, and via audio-visual information. Our work for the Travel Information Action Plan included 7 tasks. You can look at them real quick here. I'm just going to go over each of the study tasks briefly in the following slides. To help guide the project, we engaged a steering committee comprised of Transit is the Answer Coalition members, service board representatives, and RTA staff with expertise related to accessibility. And some of those steering committee members are on this call. We conducted 4 meetings with the steering committee, along with periodic engagement in between the meetings. We then worked with CTA, Metra, and PACE staff to complete an inventory of all customer information processes. The photos on this slide show some of the examples from the inventory, with photos showing a CTA bus exterior display, a PACE bus tracker sign, a CTA Braille bus stop sign, and also a Metra tracker sign display. This slide lists some of the key takeaways from our customer information inventory. CTA, Metra, and PACE are expanding the use of dynamic display technology as we speak. This is how they do things at 95th Dan Ryan, which puts a lot of information digitally for customers to see. The delivery of real-time information is common for single-mode locations. Hardware and vendor contracts solutions vary by agency. So briefly, one of the things for you to know is that it's common knowledge that the same system that is Metra's train tracker is the same system that CTA uses on CTA buses for CTA bus tracker. But CTA train tracker is a different system from those, and PACE bus tracker is a different vendor from the CTA bus tracker. So that's what we're talking about, different vendors. Arrival times for connecting services and interagency transfers remains a challenge. We have been told that throughout this process. Now I'm going to hand over the presentation to my colleague, Beatrix Yan, who's going to talk about the next few tasks in our effort to develop the Travel Information Action Plan. Those tasks dealt with the user experience research and user experience testing, building on some of the pioneering research that the RTA conducted in 2005. This work was completed before I joined the RTA, and it still guides our work.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Hi, everyone. My name is Beatrix, and as Kevin said, I also worked on this project alongside H&TB and the folks here at Regional Coordination. To help bring us all up to date, RTA staff reviewed the 2005 Foundational Research and Rider Experience Report. And this report identified a few things. 1, what recommendations were completed since the 2005 research? 2, what recommendations were not completed? And three, what has changed since the report was published in 2005? As you can imagine, there's 20 years between the last report and our current report. So some of the main takeaways that we found as we reviewed were technological improvements. Since 2005, smartphones have become the primary platform for improved transit information for customers. The second is travel options. So travel options for transit customers have increased in the past 20 years, with the advent and common use of smartphones facilitating the rise of new micromobility transportation options like Uber and Lyft. And last, customer expectations. With the rise of such transportation network companies, the TNCs, that show real-time arrivals with a map of the vehicle's current location, customers' expectations of public transit also grew in wanting those same features. Transit customers now expect accurate real-time information. One thing I would like to mention is that when the RTA provided real-time information for CTA Bus, CTA Rail, Metra, and PACE on the RTA website in 2014, the Chicago region became the first region in the United States to provide real-time information for all public transit services. With the advancement of the digital interfaces, like we were just talking about, this task also identifies the usability principles to ensure that digital and printed materials align with three key findings and the best practices in user experience or UX design. Digital interfaces are an extension of the transit network. Consistency is required and redundancy is preferred, and every transit employee is a potential source of transit customer information. If you look to the right of the slide, the photo emphasizes the importance of transit employees who are often the best source of customer information. After we did the update on the foundational research, we also tackled user experience and testing. We were asking ourselves, how do things work in the real world? We wanted to observe and ask these questions, and so we enlisted participants to go through our user testing. The consultant team recruited a wide, diverse range of transit users and observed their decision-making and habits during an actual trip. The tasks within the user testing included all the things that you see on this slide with participant selection. Then we interviewed each person. Each person planned their trip, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail later on. We observed the trips and the people riding them. There's a post-trip interview, and then we also summarize the findings, which we'll also go over. We had a diversity of riders that completed the ride-along trips. You can see who our participants are on the right. A total of 8 people participated with a wide range of age, technological experience, mobility ability, and navigational preferences. For example, some people preferred analog versus digital. Others have a preference of language spoken at home and other mobility preferences as well. I just wanted to note that the low number of participants, the 8 that we had participate, is not meant to be a statistically significant sample size, but this is a user testing with real people taking real trips, and it's not a survey. The trips were pre-selected and assigned by the RTA and the consultant team to represent a wide variety of possible cross-region trips. Recruited riders were each assigned a different transit trip to complete, and every single trip required a transfer between transit modes, so bus to train or vice versa, or between service boards, so from PACE to Metra, Metra to CTA, etc. The team conducted ride-alongs, which means that we observed the riders during the trip without interfering or providing guidance. We were just kind of flies on the wall taking notes as they're navigating, looking at their phones or looking at their maps, or trying to figure out how to navigate from place to place. To supplement these observations, the team also interviewed the riders before and after the trip, and the key findings from the user testing, some of which are highlighted in the Travel Information Action Plan, helps to inform the recommendations. And now I'm going to pass it over to Kevin to present those recommendations. Kevin, take it away.
Thanks, Beatrix. Based on all the information from the previous tasks, RTA staff and the consultant team then identified further coordination opportunities, which we fleshed out with CTA PACE Metra and discussed it with the steering committee. The high-level coordination opportunities are listed on this slide, and I will go into detail with this on the following slides, but I'll just briefly go over these. It's increased coordination, consistency of customer information, products, and services. Develop a standard of means of information reporting using the GTFS specification. Improve delivery of service alerts. Expand utility of dynamic signage at stations and on transit vehicles. Refine communication strategies around special events like Lollapalooza that just ended. Great example. Improve interagency signage for clarity and accessibility. Improve dynamic audio and visual announcements at stations and in transit vehicles. And implement consistent language support across all service boards. So the first one of these is increased coordination and consistency of products and services. So for this, we would continue regional coordination to implement advancements in the region. This on the picture we have here, it would be the best case scenario of us having an all-in-one system that we could have at the RTA. I mean, many of these are in place now, like the transit app does it, but those are on smartphones and they are good, but there are specific things that are unique to our region. And that's why we would, number two, implement regional standards for design and information reporting. This would, again, help out with consistency among the service boards. And then finally, procure a regional fare payment schedule and a real-time information application. The next one would be develop a means of reporting using GTFS. GTFS is the standard. It's been the standard for about 14, 15 years now for providing real-time information. Those of you that know, it was originally the Google Transit Speed specification, but this is what transit agencies around the world use. So the first is reporting delayed and canceled trips, ghosting. And I will say, during this process, CTA mentioned that they were working on it, and this is one of the biggest issues that we've heard throughout the process. And they have implemented that They've implemented that in the past week. You would see it on the transit app, and if you use the CTA website, the webpage, the bus tracker webpage, because I saw it recently. I saw a canceled bus, and yes, that's what we need. The second would be scheduled versus real-time arrivals. Um, the third is improved reporting of vehicle locations. We all know that it's not perfect, that you see it. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. And this is frustrating to customers. Definition of when an arrival is due. Awareness of on-demand services. This is one of where PACE has been working with transit for that, since they have a lot of on-demand services. And naming conventions for routes, stops, and stations. That would be helpful for our customers overall. The next is improve delivery of service alerts. So you would standardize communication protocols for service alerts and improve staff empowerment for service alerts. Let me just say, we show a PACE one here, which they have a specific detour here. And I must say, one of the things that you may have seen around for Lollapalooza, CTA has started recently using QR codes for specific customer alerts at the specific bus stops. And Metra has done the same. So the QR codes is a use that the service boards are starting to use more to help bring this up to speed a lot quicker. The next is expand utility of dynamic signage at stations and on transit vehicles. We had a quick question about that. The dynamic signs on vehicles to facilitate transfers. So you can see on the CTA sign on the top there on a bus, on one of the more recent buses, that it tells you what your transfer opportunities are. In other regions, they will tell you when the other bus is coming. This is something that we had a discussion with, and that there is a possibility to do that in the future. But we would need a little bit more funding to do that. And then also share displays at interagency locations. So, for instance, the example we give here is that this is a Metra display at the Ravenswood UP North Station. The proposal is that, it would show the Lawrence bus that goes right by there, it would show that same type of information on there. One thing that I will say for that, when we think of these type of things, is that we have to have enough space on there because there's a concern that if you show bus and rail information, that if it's not clear what is what, some customers may be confused. And the next one is refine communication strategies around special events. I just mentioned Lollapalooza, and the picture on the right, you can see CTA has, for the past few years, they've used sandwich boards actually to let people know where to catch buses during special events. And for this one, we would have show real-time transit services, special events on GTFS feeds. Geographically based service alerts on vehicles before and during special events. I mentioned it at the bus stops, but one of the things that we said is that we would want it on the vehicles too. Implements GTFS trip modifications functionality. I can tell you PACE and CTA are working on that as we speak. Use existing audio-visual equipment at stations to communicate special events. And finally, communication on bus bunching. Uh, I don't know I mean, I'm sure some of you have taken service after this. If you are at an event or just a regular rider who's tied in events, and that's one of the biggest frustrations that we've heard. Um, Six is improve signage for clarity and accessibility. So the first will be incorporate bus stop letters in customer information displays. RTA has worked with CTA and PACE for the past 12, 15 years to integrate bus stop lettering. We have it at bus stops, CTA has it at bus stops, and PACE does, but we don't have it in the customer information displays, so customers can tie that together. And the other is upgrade comprehensive wayfinding by replacement of Metra platform signs. I've been at RTA for about 15 years, and one of the first things we talked about was how Metra used to have to Chicago from Chicago on their signs, and many customers found that as an issue. Metra for the past couple of years now will have to Chicago or to Union Station or to Ogilvie, and then they will have the other direction terminal, in this case on the new Peterson Ridge Station, how the UP North trains go to Kenosha. And so the next one, number 7, improve dynamic audio-visual announcements at stations and on transit vehicles. You would have audio-visual announcements for incoming CTA trains at multi-line stations. So, for instance, at Clark Lake, it would tell you which train is coming. Right now, the train tracker signs will show you which one, but this would announce it to help for people with disabilities. Standardized alert tones. This is something that I will say as a long-term transit employee working here and at CTA, I'd never thought about this, but we have a person here at RTA who specializes this and brought this up, and our folks who work with people with disabilities felt this was a great thing to try to implement in the future. Add platform track information to arrival announcements at metro stations. The other is adjust track number announcements at metro terminus stations. I'll just say, if you're wondering what this is, just go to Union Station and you can hear the different track numbers kind of going over each other. But they're there if you're listening for your specific track. And then the last one, improve announcements for transfers. That one goes without saying, I would hope. So the last one here is standardize and improve support for multiple languages. Provide consistent language support across all agencies. Provide translations of standard service alert messages. Have the website to introduce customers to audio and visual prompts to use across the transit system, which ties into one of the ones I said before, and incorporate language support on signage. In the example here, we have the RTA system map, which we only have in English, and we have in English and Spanish, and others feel maybe you would need additional languages for that. Even though service boards provide languages on their websites to, as I mentioned before, differing levels. So, um, and so finally, uh, we would have we have our action plan components. So, for the action plan, we listed it as a few things here. So in May, so in May we released the action plan to help guide the service boards. The action plan, which is available on the RTA website, includes all the items I just presented in the previous slides. The document includes a table suggesting the timeline and relative cost of each recommendation to help us prioritize our work and align the necessary resources. Some of the recommendations require minimal capital costs and professional services, and those could be implemented within 1 year. Other recommendations require procurement of infrastructure and or more professional services, potentially involving multiple agencies, which could take several years. Most recommendations we have fall somewhere in between and will likely take 1 to 3 years to implement. For example, the image on this slide shows a hypothetical kiosk at the Jefferson Park Transportation Center displaying real-time information for Metra trains, CTA buses, and PACE buses. This is similar to what I was talking about earlier about the Metra display at the UP North Station on Lawrence. We don't have anything this right now at Jeff Park, and it would likely take us a few years to get there and more than a few dollars to implement such a kiosk there. But but as I mentioned, Metra does have kiosks like this at the Ravenswood station, and we should be able to use displays like this to show the CTA and, where possible, PACE or this information at Metra stations and PACE regions, show the PACE information on this infrastructure. This would shorten the implementation time of something like this immensely. So this concludes my presentation today, and I'll welcome any comments. Beatrix and I, and we have a few representatives from the service boards on the call too, who could jump in. I haven't seen the actual comments. So I'll just open it up to questions, and I'll let Beatrix. Can you handle the questions? Because I want to jump into I want to jump into the comments to see.
Yeah, and before I open up to questions, I just want to take the time to celebrate Kevin, actually. Kevin is retiring from his longtime career in transit this upcoming on August 8th. He's, as he said, he's been with the RTA since 2009, and he's before that he was in the region in CTA since 1997. So he's been a huge player in forwarding transit in the region. So if you all could just get off camera and maybe give a round of applause or shoot some applauses in the chat, that would be amazing because Kevin has been an instrumental part of of the Chicagoland region. So,
Thanks, Beatrix. I'm jumping back in the chat.
all right, questions, please, everyone.
I do see one. Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica. I work in communications for the RTA. I took a note down of one question that was left in the chat early on, so I can just read it aloud. Would it be possible to retrofit digital signage into older CTA trains? This is done in many other countries and could greatly improve the customer experience.
Hey guys, this is Lucian from CTA. I participated in the study. I do not have a specific answer for that, but what I would recommend is, um, so I think that question hits on this idea that, hey, we have this infrastructure out there for communicating with our customers and, technology changes, right? And so I think one of the things that this exercise really hit on is this idea that we need to be constantly maintaining a lot of these customer touch points, right? I think, in an older world, there was certainly an expectation that, hey, we did the project, we put the new signs out, the signs are fine, we can leave. Whereas, the world we live in today is very much around constant changes, right? There's a lot of desire out there for changes to the Venture Act. There's a lot of desire out there for changes to the signs CTA has at stations. And so I think one thing that's super effective for anyone to do today is if you go to transitchicago.com/contact, there's a little button there that allows you to email CTA staff. And one thing that's really cool about that is that our customer service folks always make the effort to take your comments and forward them to the right manager, right? So if you go there today to that website and you say, hey, I really wish these trains had updated signage, someone at CTA in our maintenance department and our customer communications department will receive that feedback, right? And that's a really valuable source of information that helps CTA prioritize these kinds of investments.
Lucy, what was that website again that you said?
If you go to transitchicago.com/contact, and there's a button there where you can email CTA staff and your comment will be forwarded to the right person.
All right, thank you.
I've got another question from the chat. What potential challenges can you identify with the implementation of the plan?
So mine originally will be it's actually two things that pops in mind. It's structural in that for things that go across the agencies, CTA, PACE, and Metra, we have to work together with their procurement departments to align funding for the same things and align consultants and contractors for it. That is a key thing. So with that, to bring some things into RTA would be helpful where we could do the contracting and just and actually provide be the conduit for it. For instance, the example of the sign on Jefferson Park, but that would take a while. So for instance, let me just quickly step back. So for the Metra sign at Ravenswood, Metra is already looking at trying to integrate in CTA and PACE information, and if we can do it with their sign, that's great. But an open fields, for instance, that we would have one sign that could take it could take the PACE information, the CTA information, and the Metra information would be easier. But again, that takes a lot longer.
All right, next up, can we increase frequency to reduce dependence on bus time updates?
Frequency, so if it's frequency, when we hear frequency, one of the things that I hear frequency of getting the information. So what we consider polling of how often the bus does it, how often that the information's updated. So for instance, with polling, you're always, I hate to say, you're always going to be quicker with your phone. I'm sure those of us, if you're standing on a platform, you're looking at Metra Tracker or you're looking at Train Tracker, and your phone says it's like 3 minutes of the train, and the sign says it's like 4 minutes from the train. It's because your phone polls on demand. So it gets the updates quicker than the sign. And this is something we we did discuss. We got deep into this discussion of how we can get, as we would say it, polling quicker information to real-time information for customers so the information is somewhat more accurate. And the one thing that we were told as RTA is we need more money.
Oh, can I clarify? Can we increase, can we push the different providers of transit to provide more frequent service of buses and train? That way customers are not so dependent on, time updates from our apps.
So that would be again, so that would be up for funding for PACE, Metra, and CTA. And that is one of the things where RTA working with them have looked at providing a more frequent network if there was funding. That's part of the funding proposals that we had in Springfield of that this is what you get if we get a lot more money if that service is more frequent. I think one of the comments I saw was, could you give us, let us know how the time between, making a bus and a train or train and a bus so they could know to run or not. Um, Somebody mentioned London. I was just in Paris and there, yeah, my urge to run for a train is not there because I know another train's coming time of day if it's going to be like 3 or 4 minutes for the time of day. But I will say this in defense of our region, please look around the world. Everybody points everything. Very, very few regions run 24/7. And we are blessed that our region runs, it may be a half hour for a train, but if you're London, if you're Paris, that train's not coming if you're in the middle of the night.
Another question is, are there any advances planned towards adding hearing loop technology to assist in audio announcement comprehension for those with hearing aids?
I am looking if I will have to file that one because that is out of my wheel well. We would have to bring that up with the service boards and talk to one of our experts here that works on those type of things. So I will file that away and put that on the list.
Thanks. Um, how will funding for the action plan be secured in light of the current fiscal cliff and projected budget cuts? Kevin, I don't know if you want to take this one. I know Kyle's on as
So
well.
I will jump on this very quickly. So through this process, we understood that certain things would have to be low cost. And that's why we split the action plan up into under year and 1 to 3 years. And as I mentioned, many of these things can be done as is with minimal amount of money. For instance, sometimes it just may take longer. For instance, I mentioned the large Metra display at Ravenswood, and I hate to keep coming back to that, but it's a great opportunity that with staff time, that could be done. But if you put staff time and consulting time, it could be done even quicker. Some of the other things we've discussed, yeah, we will need if we're gonna have to like introduce specialty tones throughout the whole system, that's a lot of time and money because you have to like we'd have to set it up, we'd have to do the standards, and then every vehicle would have to be touched to implement something like that. So that would take a lot longer. So it's again, that's what we looked at. Things can be done easily, things can be kind of done easily, and things that it's kind of a wish list. So again, go online and look at the report so you can see more of the detail.
Next up, will some of the issues discussed here be aided by by a stronger RTA under proposed legislation? This one I did give Kyle and Gov Affairs a heads up about. Hi, Kyle.
Hey everybody, Kyle Whitehead from the Government Affairs team. Um, yes, stronger regional authority and stronger regional coordination has been one of the consistent themes throughout the revenue and reform conversations that have been happening over the last few years. So it was certainly a central theme of our transforming transit proposal, and I can share a link to that legislative language and some more information if you're interested. It was also a theme of the MMA proposal and the United We Move Act, which was introduced by Labor. So the final bill that did pass out of the Senate but did not pass the House contained elements of all those different proposals. And it'll certainly, I know, be a theme for riders and legislators as those talks continue. If you want to dig in more to the what's been proposed in the legislation and what stronger regional authority might look like, we do have a coalition meeting planned for next week to talk more about some of the reforms that were introduced in the Senate and how they'll affect the system and its riders. So we can share information in the chat about that as well.
Thank you. The last question that I see is there a plan to electrify buses?
I will say that was not part of our plan. Our plan was just on customer information for that. And I will throw that back to Kyle. I think there was something in the legislation about that.
Yeah, I don't know. So there certainly are big initiatives at both CTA and PACE to fully electrify their bus fleets. I don't know if there's anybody from the service boards who wants to speak to that. But yes, there is a date in state law right now by which uh, both CTA and PACE will no longer be able to purchase diesel buses, and potentially moving up that date and having it take a more immediate effect has been a part of the reform discussion. So it has been a priority for legislators, and both CTA and PACE already have initiatives to electrify their fleets. The challenge there is funding, of course. It is expensive not just to purchase the vehicles, but also the infrastructure and the charging equipment that's necessary to maintain these vehicles. And just procuring the equipment in the buses has been a challenge. Manufacturing is limited in the US, and even around the world, and there have been reliability issues with the emerging technology. So this is something that both PACE and CTA are spending a lot of time on as our transit agencies across the country. But it comes with some challenges for sure.
We had a follow-up, Kyle. Any specifics on next week's coalition meeting that you would like to share?
Yeah, well, I think Jessica just put the link to register in the chat, and you could read the description there. But part of what we'll do is look at some of the key components of the bill that passed the Senate but did not pass the House, and talk about how the bill would affect the transit system and its riders. You know, the assumption is that when talks resume and work is still happening in the legislature over the summer, um, this legislation is going to be a starting point for future discussions. So we want people in the region to understand what's in it, how it might affect them and their communities, and we want to hear your feedback in terms of what you think about the revenue and reform, and how it might be able to be improved moving forward, because we're very focused on securing sustainable funding and improving coordination and accountability, delivering more frequent service all around the region. And we want to continue to work with riders to make progress.
All right, I don't see any more questions in the chat. Feel free to continue pasting them in there. If anyone would like to come off mute and ask a question verbally, I just ask that you use the raise hand function if you can, to keep it tidy. And there's no penalty for ending early. So if we answered all your questions and you have all the information, that's fine too. But last call for any questions or comments. All right, seeing none. Thank you all. And Beatrix or Kevin, go ahead and wrap it up.
Please, I will say, please, I would first off thank Lucian for joining from CTA. He was crucial to this whole process. I see that our members from PACE, Doug Sullivan and Troy Clampett from Metra are on the call. So thank you all. And our consultant, Tim Gustafson from HNTB. So thank you all for joining the call. The work we've had is productive. If you have not already, I would ask you to please read the report. It's a really plan going forward. Whether we get a lot of money from Springfield, a little money, some money, it is a great plan for going forward. Beatrix, I'll let you close it out.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining, and thanks for all the engaging questions. This project is really one of the driving forces of what's going to come in our region. So thank you for taking the time to learn more about it, and hopefully there will be more to come out of this. So thank you again, everyone.